Steam's top 100 most played games. Have you ever seriously taken a look into them and seen the scum and the gold that both thrive inside of this chart? The games that appear in this list are the most played on Steam, so they are essentially the biggest games in the world. Although the list naturally changes, it also contains several champions, games that have stuck around over the years without going anywhere. Between the indie games that succeed against the odds and the ginormous games that only get bigger, I think this chart raises some very interesting questions about the most popular games. For instance, Counter-Strike 2 sits at number 1, and yet a lot of people agree that that game has serious issues. Similarly, Apex Legends' reputation has been in the dirt for a long time. From what I've heard, this game is a husk of its former self. However, it continues to pull in one of the largest amounts of players on the store. These games are hated for their neglect, how they don't listen to their communities, but at the same time, they have vastly more players than almost every other game on Steam. Almost uncontested. Look lower on the list and you'll see more of what I call classics. These are games that receive much more praise and are universally seen as masterpieces. And also in the mix, there's a bunch of other stuff. Practical applications, games used for role-playing, and clickers. While I found that there is a diverse variety of games in the top 100, I also found that many of these games use the same trends and strategies to get their high player counts. Some of these strategies are pretty corporate, while others are just based on being a good game.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you see, I noticed that almost all the games on the Steam charts fit into a certain category based on what kind of game they are at their core. And I think the popularity of each of those categories says a lot about what gaming has become worldwide. Chances are that if you use Steam, you play a game that fits into one of these categories. You might even exclusively play games from it. As I see it, the types of games that make it onto the top 100 are as follows: the classic, the Titan, the application, and the clicker. To get the simplest one out of the way, let's talk about the application. The application is not a game. Instead, it is just a practical product that is sold on Steam. Because many people consider these to be essential, they make it in the top 100 out of sheer importance. Examples include Soundpad, Crosshair X, OBS Studio, and of course, Wallpaper Engine. Despite not actually being games, these programs often rise high in the ranks of the most played list. So I'm talking about them first because I don't think they say as much as the other categories do. People like custom crosshairs, they like playing music, and they like wallpapers. You can't blame them. But with those games out of the way, let's get into what I call classics. A classic is a game that relies on nothing but its gameplay. These are the games that make it into the top 100 most played games simply because they are fun. These games don't rely on any external features to supplement their gameplay. They don't use microtransactions, they don't use cosmetics, and they don't need yearly releases to stay relevant like a lot of other big games do. These titles are in the top 100 most played games simply because they are well designed. When you apply that definition into the top 100, you'll notice that most games that fit into it are usually single-player or co-op games. The best example of a classic is Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley is often just shy of being in the top 10 most played games on Steam. It is a game that rivals the biggest in the industry, and it does it solely through good design. How can it be this popular? It's just a pixel farm game, is probably what an executive once said.
I think we need to make another hero shooter. Concord was my baby.
The answer to that ridiculous question would be that Stardew Valley is a really great game, and people want to play it because it's fun. Stardew maintains tens of thousands of players because the gameplay loop and design is worthy of them. If you haven't started a Second Life on Stardew, you probably know someone who has. It's a classic because it doesn't use any additional strategies to get these players. People play this game because they like its gameplay. And the reason why I know that is because Stardew doesn't have any microtransactions or appeals outside of its design. People play the game simply because it's fun. Now, that might sound like a bit of a silly concept. Aren't we all playing games because they're fun? But the difference between Stardew Valley and something like Apex Legends is that Stardew Valley is being played simply for its gameplay. Likewise, The Binding of Isaac. Whenever I play this game, I feel like I've been transported to 2011, and yet this game can sometimes be spotted at the 35th most played game on Steam. To give you an idea, a game theory for this game came out 9 years ago, and yet this game remains on the top 100 list. Not the top 100 roguelikes, not the top 100 games of 2011. The Binding of Isaac has been casually chilling in the top 100 games of Steam overall. That is particularly crazy to me, because this little game is competing with industry titans. In this screenshot taken on November 26th, you can see The Binding of Isaac sitting in between Overwatch 2 and Rainbow Six Siege. Talk about grumpy neighbors. Both of those games use battle passes. have movie-like cinematics, spend time and money on advertising, and invest in their own esports scenes. But The Binding of Isaac is just a game, and it's still able to compete with them. Just like Stardew Valley, this is because of well-designed, timeless gameplay, the traits of a classic. If these games didn't have enough players to be in the top 100, I would still be impressed by them. But the fact that they can be seen on this worldwide chart tells me that people still value these types of games. They almost defy the rest of the market, which is a theme that has been a part of indie games for as long as I can remember, but continues to surprise me as gaming evolves and the competition gets more intense. The gaming industry makes more money than the music and movie industry combined. So a lot of companies are going to pour millions to try and get their player counts to this level. There is a lot of profit to be made, and a lot of things companies do to get people to play their games. And yet people choose to play these smaller indie games that don't have any of those fix-ins that those larger budgets contribute. Classics don't just have to be indie games though, and a high budget doesn't disqualify a game from being one. All that matters is what the budget is spent on. If the budget is spent on skins, promotions, advertisements, limited time challenges, celebrity tie-ins, lunchboxes, then that's not a classic because the game is using things outside of the gameplay to get people to play it. It works all the time. But with a classic, that budget, that time, that appeal is all in the gameplay itself, which is more rare than you would think nowadays. More examples of classics include Elden Ring, Baldur's Gate 3, Red Dead Redemption 2, as well as Factorio, Satisfactory, Project Zomboid, and Terraria, which are all games that are on the Steam Top 100. Seeing these games on the list shows that there is a big appeal for pure classic gameplay. And you might notice that all of these games that fulfill my classic definition also happen to be some of the most universally acclaimed. This is not a coincidence. These games each have hundreds of positive reviews, posts, and videos about why they are masterpieces. Their reputations are in high regard with the majority of people. This is because when a developer only focuses on a game's gameplay and not its cosmetic or monetary features, it's naturally going to feel better than a game doing the opposite. Apply this again to our example Apex Legends. Ask yourself, would Apex Legends have as many players if it wasn't for its cosmetics, seasons, loot crates, and premium heroes? More so, would it be nearly as active without the game's challenges that incentivize players to log in and play for experience towards their battle pass?
Respond seriously, this battle pass system is ridiculous. The kind of challenges listed, one would have to drop everything in life just to do them. One would have to drop everything in life just to do them.
Where would Counter-Strike be without its skin market? Not nearly as popular. If you were to peel off the skins from Counter-Strike, it might not be able to maintain its #1 place, and that's why it's not a classic. Sure, in both of these examples, if both games were to be more like classics, they would probably still be popular. Counter-Strike 2 and Apex Legends didn't gain their notoriety without having good gameplay to back it up, but they probably wouldn't be nearly as dominant without these dopamine hacks that support their gameplay. Counter-Strike 2 is the most played game on Steam's Top 100, and it's not even close. This is the type of game I consider to be a Titan. A Titan is a massive multiplayer game that is often competitive, monetary, and old. Titans are massive games that function as businesses. They can be incredibly fun games to play, but they are not classics. The reason why is because they rely on extra dopamine-inducing strategies to keep a lot of their players. These strategies being cosmetics, microtransactions, seasons, emotes, premium currency, locked content, timers, limited time events, grinds, crossovers, gambling, nostalgia bait, daily rewards, and more. These are all things that do not contribute to gameplay as much as they might seem, and are purely there to get you to play a game even if you're not that into the gameplay. Whether you like Titan-type games better than classics, or find yourself playing classic-type games more, you probably agree that these strategies have only become more prominent. Of course, there is the infamous fact about how the first video game microtransaction was horse armor for the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. To some people, I bet that might have felt ridiculous at the time, but it's a far cry from how advanced these strategies have become today. Nowadays, studios design the most elaborate and over-the-top skins in hopes of getting us to buy them. If I had to guess, it's one of the most efficient ways to make a profit off of a game, based on how ridiculous these skins are getting, trying to catch our eyes.
When editing this video, I went to fetch footage of Call of Duty skins. I chose Call of Duty because I heard that recently its skins have been getting pretty over the top, and yet, even knowing that, nothing could have prepared me for what I found. This is Call of Duty Mobile, so it's not on the Steam charts, but still.
Don't worry, soldier. I'm with you every step of the way. We stand together. We fight for the generations to come.
But I would propose that these skins are also created because they keep people playing games in general. When you buy a skin in a video game, it gets you extra invested in the game, because you now have to justify your purchase, and not playing it would mean that that purchase was a waste. If I were to stop playing Rainbow Six Siege, all of the skins that I spent real money on would be for nothing. And that's why I will continue to let down my teammates in the trenches of Copper. If I'm dragging everyone's elo down, at least I'm going to do it with style. The people who play Stardew Valley don't have this dynamic. They are playing it because it's a fun game, not because they have to go and use their skins. And this complements the gameplay even more. Stardew Valley is competing with big games that are using all sorts of tactics to try and manipulate our psychology, and it still does better just using pure gameplay. NBA 2K25 has made it onto the most played chart, but could it have really accomplished that without the gambling involved in its microtransactions? Still a cash grab machine. The single player experience is not good, as it forces you to participate in daily spins, betting, and other idiocracy just to have a chance at playing the game we all came here for, basketball. I dearly hope we get a competitor to 2K, because this stuff has gotten out of hand. This review really speaks to the negative trends that have been invading this industry for years. A lot of people just want good gameplay, even from these giant games, because the games have good gameplay at their core. But then these other factors like daily spins come into play and ruin the experience. More and more, we're seeing that sometimes the monetary side of these games completely eclipses the gameplay. I was reminded several times on my last Fortnite video that there exists evils far worse than Epic Games. It's become very clear that EA is a company who designs their games with profit first and gameplay after, putting the carriage in front of the horse in their games. It may have been a while, but I haven't forgotten the disgrace that was Battlefront 2's launch. A prime example of outside factors getting in the way of what should have been good gameplay. But even with all the backlash about what has changed in gaming over the last decade, the push to surround gameplay with factors that have nothing to do with it only continues. Some of the games that push cosmetics the most also suspiciously don't seem to listen to their communities very much. There's been several long-running problems where these competitive titans don't listen to their casual players or don't listen to their competitive players. This game is pretty near and dear to my heart, but some people question if the Dead by Daylight balancers even play the game. I'm not saying all of these games have these same problems. Some of them do better with listening to their communities than others. And it's not that these games don't deserve their player counts either. I just wonder if the approach they take to game design would benefit from some change. Compare this to classic games, the classic games of the Steam Top 100. They are untouchable. If I told you that Red Dead Redemption 2 would benefit from some change, you'd probably lower your honor. But I think some people will listen to just about anyone talk about how they would improve CSGO or Rainbow Six Siege. Like, you could just be walking down the street and you walk into one of those people, flipping the signs. Then all of a sudden they kind of go off script, you kind of get mesmerized by the sign and they're like, hey, while I got your attention here, I know I'm supposed to be advertising this bank behind me, but I just kind of want to talk to you about Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, what is going on with that game? Shields, am I right? And be like, actually, tell me more. And in fact, stop spinning the sign, stop, because I want to hear more about this. And you'd probably listen to him until like the cows come home at that point, probably be late for supper. matter of fact, because those games are always in need of improvement. Classic games put their gameplay first, and as such they dramatically benefit. They're often celebrated, while titans are often scrutinized. And yet the Steam's most played games list contradicts those reputations. While there are a greater variety of games that could be considered classics on the list, there is at least a minimum of 2 million people playing games that could be considered titans as of the last time I checked. The games that people consider to be flawless are popular, but they are in no way as popular as these concentrated titans, at least on the top 100 chart. I'm not saying that this is 100% because of the supporting strategies that these games use, but surely it's gotta be up there. How many times have you not wanted to play a game, but felt compelled to because you had to finish your battle pass? In this very common scenario, it is not the gameplay that is getting you to play the game, but something else entirely. I don't think it's any surprise then that in more recent years, I've heard many people compare modern video games to feeling like a 9-to-5 job. It's become a more and more common complaint that is very interesting. You might argue that skins in video games are harmless, but can the same be said for battle passes? One of the most rude additions to video games. Can they be harmless? I think most people would say no. Are the limited incentives that make you feel like you have no choice but to play harmless? And what happens when these big games combine those incentives with cosmetics and then just go ahead and combine them with ranked mode? Ranked mode is the most toxic thing on any video game, and yet some of these companies, Rainbow Six Siege, I know this is like not about mobile games, but Brawl Stars too, they will combine their cosmetics. Like they'll make a new shiny cosmetic and attach it to a rank. They're like, you gotta get to diamond rank if you want this cosmetic. That's insane. When you decide to play a game on its ranked mode, your day's probably already going bad. The stakes of playing a ranked game are risen far past a casual experience. That's why people get so mad when they play them. Just the consequence of losing a gold title can make people tilted. But some studios will add exclusive cosmetics that can only be unlocked for a limited time through climbing the acidic wasteland of a ladder that is probably their competitive game modes. And sure, you can say that practices like that aren't that bad because at the end of the day, it's all just pixels. It's just a silly screen. Close the computer. Close the Xbox. Good thing no one's willing to spend $20 for one of the skins from these games or invest 500 to 1,000 hours on some of them. Good thing people aren't invested at all in these worlds. Just the fact that someone could play a game not because they genuinely enjoy it, but because they have been put on a fake timer they have to obey if they want to get their money's worth is ridiculous. And yet, when you look at the Steam Top 100, the games that use these practices are not like some shady, kind of more underground games. No, they're at the top of the list. And I think that says a lot about what is working on people and also what people are letting some game companies get away with. It is genuinely weird that this is the way the most popular games are allowed to function, but I don't blame us for not noticing with how gradually this has creeped into our hobbies. Now, I don't think that premium cosmetics and challenges need to be deleted tomorrow, because I understand that the dynamic between gamers and microtransactions is complex. I don't think anyone would be very happy if all paid cosmetics and battle passes disappeared tomorrow. Well, some people would be like really happy. But the majority of people love their Counter-Strike skins, they enjoy their limited time challenges, and they tolerate battle passes for their value. Instead, I'd like to now focus our attention on a much more obvious problem that I found on the Steam Top 100. You see, many of these games that I consider to be titans mix their dopamine supplements with honestly good gameplay. People would still play DBD even if its skins were removed. But what would happen if gameplay itself was to disappear from a game and people still played it, with the only thing left being those dopamine tactics? The Steam Top 100 exposes another interesting phenomenon: the clicker. Banana is a look into what a titan would be like if it had no shame. Well, that's a lot of titans, but even less shame. Just like with a game like Apex Legends, this game involves rarities in skins, as well as the ability to make money for your Steam account. A lot of people have already spoken about Banana and shined light on the more suspicious aspects of it. Yes, when this game and others like it appeared on the Steam Top 100, commentator YouTubers got straight to calling out this game for how shady it is. But a couple months later today, and Banana is still rocking around number 7 to sometimes 5 on the Steam's most currently played games list. It's probably the first thing anyone would notice when looking at the Steam charts, because Banana looks silly. But it's not an ordinary game, and it's not a small one either. Last time I checked, this game has more players than Stardew and The Binding of Isaac combined. Sometimes more players than Apex on its own. What could possibly be more popular than two of the greatest indie games combined, and more popular than Apex? Banana is a clicker game where you click on a banana. That is the gameplay, but this is not your average cookie clicker. There's no interesting multipliers, strategies, or art design in this one. The reason why anyone is actually playing the game is because of the random drops the game delivers to your Steam account as you play it. These drops are different banana skins with different rarities, each of which can be sold on the Steam market for money. So basically, people are sitting on this game clicking in hopes to get a banana worth a lot of money. You see, some of these titans that I'm talking about, you give them the money, and that's already enough to get you hooked. But in this game, it's paying you to play. It's paying you to sit there. So you can see why this game has such a high number of players. I'm not even as concerned about the shadiness of how the developers can manipulate that. Commentary YouTubers have already talked about how the developers could very easily just give themselves the high value bananas or probably do all sorts of market manipulation. What strikes me personally is that people are clicking a button for the chance at a reward. Over 100,000 people are currently participating in a Skinner box.
A BF scanner studied rats and pigeons in an operant conditioning chamber, which is called a Skinner box. Inside the Skinner box, they have a food dispenser and a lever that the rat can press. Now, you might wonder, why did Skinner look at rats and pigeons in a Skinner box? Well, it turns out that what he learned from the Skinner box can be applied to humans, meaning that information from the animals generalizes to human behavior as well. First, we want to know, why does the rat first press the lever?
I'm going to read a review, which I'm sure you could chalk up to satire or exaggeration, but when I read it, I want you to think about it, and maybe even take it seriously. Think about what it implies. After 1,000 hours in Banana, I can confidently say that this game has changed me. 1,000 hours. People laughed. It's just a clicker game, they said. But they don't know. Banana isn't just a game. It's a test of patience, an exercise in hope, a lifestyle. Every 3 hours, I find myself watching that drop timer, waiting for the possibility of a new banana in my inventory. It's more than just a game. It's a journey of faith. Every 3 hours, there's a chance for a new banana to appear, with no guarantees. Sometimes it's normal, sometimes it's rare, and every once in a while, by some miracle, it's an ultra rare or even a legendary. I've spent so much time in this game that the inventory indicator alone can make my pulse race. You don't understand excitement until you see that tiny alert pop up and wonder if this time you finally struck gold. There's no collect button, no claim screen, you just wait, and then you check. The thrill of clicking on the inventory, hoping beyond hope to see that glimmer of an epic or ultra rare banana, it's indescribable. Most times it's a common or normal, but when that legendary shows up, euphoria. I still remember my first legendary banana. I stared at the screen for a full minute in awe, just breathing in the moment. Banana is not just a clicker game, it's a meditation, a test of patience, endurance, and passion. If you haven't spent 1,000 hours waiting for drops, watching for the inventory indicator, and praying for a legendary, do you even understand what it means to be dedicated? This game is for true believers. Obviously, this review is pretty over the top, and maybe it is a complete joke, but the reviewer does have over 1,000 hours. He's closer to 2,000 hours, which, let me remind you, has been spent doing this. Obviously, he's not in it for the gameplay, so what is he in it for? Well, he spelt it out for us. He's in it for the dopamine he's getting from these PNGs. And he has willingly spent hundreds upon hundreds of hours of his time on this game because of how good that dopamine feels. Now, I don't think Banana is a disaster. What I really see it as is more of a warning. This is an experiment about what happens when gameplay is removed from the equation and replaced with external dopamine. Are people playing this having fun? Probably a little bit. Waiting for a rare banana is probably kind of fun, but to most people it's probably become a compulsion. I am sure that a good amount of the people playing this game are miserable. I should know. I used to do something kind of similar to Banana, maybe even worse. You see, as a delinquent myself, before I had a job or any motion, I used to go on a website that ran TF2 raffles. Now you might ask, was I in it for those sweet CSGO skins? No, I wanted those sweet TF2 hats. In fact, I prefer to open TF2 crates to this day, even though they are incredibly worthless compared to their counterparts. I wanted hats so bad, but had no way to buy them. but I found out that one of my favorite YouTubers was hosting a giveaway on this raffle site, and so I started using it from there. Now this site, as far as I know, wasn't really a problem at all. The only real caveat for me was having to briefly see the annoying blog post of whoever's lonely self was giving away hats just so someone would listen. Like, you kind of had to read what they had to say a little bit on the way to click the button, and it would just be someone like talking about how this was the 7th week of bed rotting. But outside of that, there was no problem with the website. The problem was that I entered 4,000 raffles in the course of like 3 days hoping to get something. I entered those raffles until my eyes hurt from a lot of scrolling, clicking, and reading really mediocre daily blogs. And you know what? I got a genuine hamshake from it, and that made me pretty happy. But besides that, I didn't really win anything of worth too much. Just like the people playing Banana, I probably offset any profit through my own power use.
Компьютер вообще не включится никогда.
Да я хочу тут кое-что сделать.
Надо выключить.
Нет.
Да.
На обмеження Сашко реагує протестом.
Выключай.
It just kind of stinks that people are choosing to play and participate in this instead of any other game on the Steam Top 100. At the very least, at least you don't have to spend money to participate, you know? This game is not the worst problem in the world. Unless there is some shady stuff going on behind the scenes, in which I do not condone it at all. I don't condone it now, alright? I wouldn't rule out anything going on inside a Banana. Genuinely though, it is pretty ugly, I don't like it, and I don't think it belongs on the Steam charts. I don't think it's crazy to say that. A really important thing for you to know is that it is the players that dictate what shows up on the Steam chart, and that goes for every single game. That begs the question, how similar are the other top Steam games to being like Banana? You might say that your favorite Titan is miles away from being anything like Banana, but I think there's a possibility that that could become much less easy to say. It really depends what people choose to play. Because if a game like Banana has more players than almost every other game on Steam, a lot of developers are going to follow suit. They're going to investigate and see, why is this game doing better than the gameplay we're putting effort into? Hey, maybe we should maybe we should put a little mini game in here. Put a little mini game into Siege where you have to, you gotta click on the barricade. All right, just forget it. Anyways, it really depends what people choose to play and how much we let developers get away with not focusing on gameplay. That will really determine what the Steam chart looks like in 5 more years. I mean, it is a common critique that Call of Duty doesn't change that much in between releases, but people keep on playing it because they get excited over the tiniest features. The only 2 things that I remember people getting hyped about for Call of Duty Black Ops was omnidirectional movement and being able to talk to people that you capture. Those changes could have been patched onto any other Call of Duty game overnight, but it's enough to rally the masses. The bar is very low, and it seems to only be getting lower. This makes me think about one of the most unproductive takes you can hear online, which is that you should be more grateful about what these Titans release. Anyone who's not aware needs to realize that these are businesses made to take as much money and time from you as possible, more than any movie or album you could listen to. If people decide that the yearly Call of Duty is enough, we're gonna keep on getting the yearly Call of Duty with the same boring gameplay. But to give a pat on the back to a lot of you as well, if you keep deciding that, you know, Stardew Valley and The Binding of Isaac are worth your time, then games like that will probably keep on doing well too. At the moment, the Steam chart seems to show that the Titans are undisputed and they're leading. And if that continues or grows, especially with games like Banana, who knows what we could be playing soon. There is a reason that casino games are called games. It's because they technically are. Even a slot machine is a game. But it's the worst type of game. There's no real gaming involved in this. It is purely a dopamine button. And we deserve better than for anything like that to leak into what we play. The industry needs to keep getting pushed towards an emphasis on gameplay and a rejection of the clicker, a rejection of the tactics that are used to inflate subpar gameplay, and a rejection of the yearly formula. The Steam Top 100 is an interesting place because it does show that there are thousands of people going in different directions. Looking through it, there is a variety of promising games being played. Games old and new being appreciated by a lot of people. But in between a lot of those games, there's those same ones that have been getting worse for years. And the top 10 games are essentially a clean sweep that almost never includes a classic game in it. I don't mean to group up all of these different games together as being bad, because I understand that Dota 2 and PUBG are fundamentally different games and that they're both extremely fun games to play. Everything I had to say in this video came from what the Steam chart led me to notice, and that is that plenty of classic games get a good amount of attention, and the ones that really strike a chord and resonate do even better. But they do not do nearly as well as the couple giants that pull in players worldwide. I decided to study the Steam Top 100 and told you what was glaringly apparent to me. In the current state of gaming, you have a lot of games doing what games should do, and a lot leaning more towards the slots. I dearly hope that things get better, and I'd like to hear your thoughts about this too in the comments. Thanks for watching, I'm Lufa.